Okay, I want you to take a seat, relax, take a deep breath in and a deep breath out, and let's get right into it. Hi, I'm Alessandra Torresani. This is Emotional Support, and today is going to be an episode with just you and me. I wanted to talk about a few things that I've learned, I think, in the past few weeks. Some experiences I've had, some ups, some downs, some celebrations. And I wanted to start with my 20-year high school reunion. Yay, so exciting. Class of 2025. No, not class of 2025, class of 2005. That's so crazy to say that. I can't even believe it. Look, here's the thing. Full disclosure, I did not graduate from my high school. Okay. When I was 15 years old, I was in the middle of my sophomore year, and I had an opportunity where I booked a job for a pilot called Newton, which was a Joel Silver production. It was for the network UPN, if you can even remember what that was. I think that Veronica Mars was like one of the final shows on UPN, but UPN was great. I actually did a few shows on UPN. It was a great network. They did great comedies, but this was actually more of a dramedy. And it shot in Australia. And Buckley at the time was like, hey, look, we can't have Alessandra just go and leave for a few months and then come back into school and not be able to do the schoolwork and keep up. And so my mom really sat me down and was like, look, it's your choice. You know what you want to do with your life? Like, do you want to go and do this? Or do you want to stay in school, have a little bit of normalcy? What's the step? And I remember sitting down at this restaurant called Casa Vega, which is very famous in Sherman Oaks. It's Quentin Tarantino's favorite. I believe it was in not How to Make It in America, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I remember sitting there with her and telling her that I was not going to be coming back in the winter semester because I was going to shoot this pilot. And it was a really hard choice because I knew that that sense of normalcy, that traditional high school experience was no longer going to be a part of me, but I knew what I wanted. And I knew that I was born to be an actor. This was an opportunity, a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I do not regret it for one bit. That being said, I did not go to my prom. I did not go to my high school graduation because I didn't graduate with Buckley. I didn't graduate at the school. I took my high school proficiency exam and I started doing junior college classes online. And then I got into colleges that I wanted to and kept deferring and so forth and so forth. So for my 10-year high school reunion, I was not invited because I was not part of the graduating class. But for the 20-year high school reunion, I had seen something online and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to write them an email and I'm going to see if I can go and buy a ticket. And they were really awesome. They let me buy a ticket. They let me come. They let me be part of the Buckley alumni. It was really fun to see some old teachers that we had. It was amazing to see the class and like how big this school has gotten and technology and the experiences. And it was truly mind blowing. But let me tell you something. I was super nervous going into it, even though it was my choice to go. Not because I dated anyone at that high school. I never dated anyone at that school. Not that I was afraid of the people that I was going to see. I honestly was like, oh yeah, bring it. It'll be fun. But I was nervous for myself because while I was excited, then it hit me of like, where am I in my life today? Right? Like when I left there, I had all this opportunity. It was like the sky was the limit. I could be a movie star. I could be a director. I could be a founder of a Fortune 500 company. There were all these things. There were all these opportunities, these bright-eyed moments I could have had. And I feel like when you go back for your 20-year high school reunion, you think of it, even your 10-year, you're like, oh, this is who I am. This is where I'm stuck being. And I'm not going to really grow from this. Like, this is the final product. And I'm very happy with where I am in my life because I'm very blessed. I have this incredible, brilliant daughter of mine, and she's so funny and so just magical. Fucking love her so much. That's perfect. That's great. Like my mom's story, that story is great. The story of what I did in my life, I'm learning every single day, but I am accepting what I've been through, what I've done, and I'm very proud of that. But the future, I'm someone who future trips all the time. And for those who don't know what future tripping is, it's like when you think about the future and you spiral because it's not what you think it's going to be and you don't know how you're going to get there and you literally like crumble apart. And it's all not real because we have to live in the present. We have to live right now. The future doesn't exist. Like we get to make the future. We get to decide that. I get to decide what my future is, whatever that may entail. And so I'm someone that future trips. And I went in there thinking, oh my gosh, like all these people were so brilliant at my school. And I'm sure that they have the best jobs in the entire world, the best families, all the successes in the world, these fantastic marriages. Like, I don't know what I was expecting, but I went in there and I was like, oh shit, like, what is this mistake that I did that I got this ticket? And I was really lucky because I'm still best friends with my best friend since middle school. And she and I got to go together. So we were each other's emotional support. And what we've learned, and we made a little funny video of, Jenna and Alessandra go to their high school reunion on TikTok and Instagram was like, we looked really good, and I know that I looked good. I felt good. And it was really exciting to see these people that we graduated with. Now, not everyone was there. Totally understand that. I mean, people are like all over the world, but there were people that came from all over. And it was so fun to see these people and see what they're doing in their life. And let me tell you, I should have been a little nervous because these people are so fucking successful and doing so many amazing things and inventing and creating these mind-boggling things that are changing the world. And you're like, okay, like I have a podcast on mental illness. But I think what I learned and what really got me so moved were when I was telling people about the podcast, and some people had known about it and some people didn't. A lot of the kids, 38-year-old kids that I grew up with, said to me, oh, you didn't know this, but after college, I was diagnosed with X, Y, and Z. Or, I actually had to go to a mental health facility for a little bit. Or, I listened to your podcast on postpartum depression because this is something I suffered through and I was alone. And I realized, like, oh my God, what this little podcast, it got to them because they were seen. They were seen, they were heard, they understood what was going on. And I gotta say, I absolutely loved every single minute of this childhood, these moments that I didn't know that I was experiencing, that I got to re-experience because I literally would go into a hallway and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I remember that smell, and it would trigger something inside of me. It's such a trip to see how small lockers are, like to see how small everything was compared to when you were there. And look, I've always been like 5'3", 5'4", in my like middle school, high school years, but it just feels like everything is so much smaller than it ever was. Like I remember going to school and everything was like, oh my God, a big scary place. And now I'm like, oh my God, this place is so cute. It's so tiny. It's so fresh. It's so clean. But I will say this. I had some really interesting kind of trippy memories. There was this one where I remembered seeing at the bottom of this little pagoda that we have at the school. I remember being there, and I don't know if it was a fire drill or if it was something like that, but I remember being like in a Halloween costume. I think I was dressed as Eloise at the plaza, and I remember this picture vividly being taken there, and I remember the memory of sitting there, being stuck there, and then the picture, and then seeing the picture. And I don't know where the picture is now. But something that really hit hard for me, and I remember turning to Jenna and I said to her, I was like, wow, I was like, I have this visceral reaction. I just felt it through my blood. Is we were walking down the halls, kind of near where the computers and the science rooms were. And I remember this heavy feeling that came over me because on 9/11, I was in, I believe, 8th grade or 9th grade. And I remember my mom took me to school that day, and every day, she took me to school. And I remember this unknown of, not to get too heavy, but I watched the second tower get hit live on TV. My mom was doing my hair. She was like curling it. We were sitting in front of the TV watching the news as we did like kind of every morning. And I remember that happening. And I remember her first reaction was like, oh, okay, we're just going to keep going to school. It's going to be okay. And then they're going to let me know when we get there what happens, what the plan is. And I remember some kids didn't come to school, some kids went to school because they wanted to create some sort of normalcy and not scare us. And thinking of it now, right, as a parent, right now in 2025, if 9/11 happened and I had a child that was in middle school, what would I have done? I have no idea, because the bravery of like all of our parents of making those decisions in like a high stakes situation is so wild and crazy to me, because I wouldn't want to be like, oh my God, lady, you have to stay home and like be fear mongering, right? But I also would have been a total disaster and panic attack and been spinning out the entire time if she was at school wondering what's happening, but also like needing to get my own thoughts in order of like, okay, what is the game plan? What do we do? How do we go from here? And I just remember like saying to Jenna, I was like, oh my God, I remember walking through these halls and remembering like one kid being like, wait, my dad's in New York. Like, I hope he's okay. And another one being like, my dad was at the airport today. And I just remember these like things that I hadn't thought about since 9/11. And it was just so wild. And it just made me have such a respect for my mom, such a respect for all the parents and the adults and the teachers in that situation, right? That had to speak to us, had to share with us what was going on without scaring us and making us nervous, because I never felt panicked like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. This is it. I just remember being confused and a little scared of like what the unknown is. And I remember like so vividly too, like speaking of when I left this school was when I was shooting this pilot, Newton. It's shot in Australia. It's shot in Sydney because that's where Joel Silver was shooting, I believe, The Matrix 2 or The Matrix 3. And so he had to be at the same studio that they were. And so we shot right next door to Keanu Reeves. And I remember being in my trailer and watching on the TV that they had announced that America had gone to war. And I remember being like, oh my God, and we're Australia. Like, what do we do? Like, I guess we're stuck here. Like, not knowing as a kid that what that even meant. But remembering that my mom handled it with such ease and with such grace and having conversations with me, and just, learning as a parent now that I'm going to have very, very, very tough conversations with Lady, and impossible conversations, and figuring out how to have those conversations without terrifying her or without traumatizing her or triggering her later in her life. It's a dance that I think as parents we have to start to think about, because we do live in a very unsettling world right now. I feel like we always do, but I feel like even more so, it's very, very unsettling. And something I also wanted to talk on, a totally different subject, but has to do with my reunion, was, I think there's always that one person for us in school. Maybe it's more than one, but for me, it was that one person in school that I'm not going to use the word bully, but I'm going to say that this person was not nice to me. And I'm going to say, I haven't thought about this person in a really long time. And it was so funny because this person didn't show up to the high school reunion. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I forgot about them and I'm going to Google them. And the reason why this person was so significant in my life in my formative high school years was this person was a very good friend of mine. And my very first boyfriend I ever had, I found out that this person had hooked up with him while I was in a relationship with him. And, it was my first real experience with Mean Girls. And it was my first experience of heartbreak. It was my first experience of jealousy, my first experience of, I wouldn't even say it was jealousy. It was more just like, hey, like someone's cheated on me. What does that even mean? How serious is this relationship? And my lack of trust. That's what I would say. My first real experience of lack of trust. And it's funny because that lack of trust, even though it was, a freshman, sophomore year of high school, for me, that carried on with me my entire life. Every single relationship that I've been in, I've always wondered like, oh, I don't want this girl to get too close to me, this new friend, because she's a little too friendly with my boyfriend and she's a little too friendly with this guy that I like. And I wonder if there's something secretly going on there. And I've always felt that in my back of my head. So anyways, long story short, I looked this person up. And the irony is, this person is in the mental health space. This person gives advice to other people. This person is a doctor, if you can only imagine. And I just thought, I wonder if they ever think about the effect that they had on me, the effect that they had on the people that were involved in this, the fact that they really like fucked with my head and my perception of relationships the entire time. I wonder if they ever hooked up with someone else's boyfriend ever again. I wonder. So I don't hold it against them. I mean, to each their own. We all grow. We all have our stories and we all have our sides of what happened. But I will say it was pretty funny to me to be like, I wonder what this person's up to in their life, and to know that they are in the same sort of field that I am. And I never came across them yet. Like, maybe I should do an episode where I confront this person. No, that's way too dramatic. This isn't a reality show, but that would be kind of funny. I don't think that they would find it funny, but I would find it really funny. Anyway, it's to each their own. And I hope that, times have changed. I'll just say that. It's wild. It's wild, the things that happen to us in high school and how they truly become formative in our brain, and how we have to break those cycles and we have to move forward and we have to grow, and how, therapy helps and friendships help and new relationships help. How 20 years later, you still think about that moment. And I haven't thought about that moment for many, many, many years. But what I've realized is that one moment, that one incident that happened really had such a lasting impact in every part of my life. Food for thought. I also wanted to take a moment to talk about teachers. As I get older, I have realized that coaches, teachers, people that we look up to, right? Professionals, we put our trust into these people as kids, right? Because they're the adults, right? And we see that, they're out, to look out what's best for us. But we realize, like, now, right, in my 38 years, like, we're all fucking human. We all make mistakes. Okay. And I think that now that is what is scary. And that's what's causing the panic and anxiety in us millennial parents, because we're realizing, like, oh, at this age, we thought we were supposed to know it all. We thought we were supposed to have it together by now. And we don't know anything. And we are just as lost and just as scared as ever. Yet now we have these children that we're trying to raise and trying to make sure that they don't grow up to be scared and anxiety ridden and depressed and living with mental illness and having bullies attack them. And, like, knowing that experience that we went through, and you don't want to give that to your kid. And then you think, like, oh my God, did our parents experience that? Or did they have great experiences? I have no idea. It's just interesting to think about the fact that we put such trust into our teachers. We put such trust into these adults, these professionals. And really, we're all humans. And it's a really terrifying thing, right? Because when you're a kid, you think that everything's going to be okay with them and they're in charge, right? And you listen to them, and you think to yourself, okay, you know what? If I'm having an issue, if I'm having a problem, you're always told to go to the adult. You're always told. But what happens if you lose that trust? What happens if that trust is broken? Something that we just recently learned from a coach was, call her daddy, Alex Cooper. I don't listen to her podcast, but I have seen lots of things coming up recently talking about how, she was, sexually, harassed by her coach, and she put all this trust and faith, and that her mom had everything written down. And it's like so unimaginable, right? Because as we're kids, we think, like, these are the people that should be in charge. These are the ones that we should put our trust in. And sometimes you can't trust those people. And I think that as adults, it's finding the balance. As parents, it's finding the balance of, like, well, how can we trust these teachers that are watching our children? How can we watch these professionals that are watching our children? Do we just relinquish that trust? Because I find when I have a lady even in a class and they say to me, oh, okay, you know what, but you can't watch the class going on. I'm like, that's not happening. Then she's not going to be in this class. But she's going to start going to a preschool where I'm going to have to relinquish that trust, relinquish that control, and have her, be with someone else in their care and trust that it's going to be okay. And look, I was a crazy person that went to a million different preschools, interviewed a bunch of different teachers, talked to different parents, talked to different kids to see, like, what was going on. And I have to tell you, like, I fully trust the place that I am having her in, but there's still a part of me inside that's like, oh, should I wait outside of the preschool every day for the first month to make sure everything's okay? No, I shouldn't do that. But I am going to do that. But it's scary, right? Because we have to put our trust. It's interesting. Lady started taking a jujitsu class. Yes, she's 3 years old in a jujitsu class. And one of her little friends in the class, who I would say is maybe like 5 or 6, she like did a move and it like hit her in the knee uncomfortably and she wanted to cry and she was scared. And it's funny because like it triggered me to be like, oh my God, I remember that feeling when I was in karate. Yes, I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. Thank you very much. And I remember when I was like 6 years old and I got hurt and I started to want to cry, but I wanted to be strong and I wanted to be brave. And my coach kind of, was like, it's okay. We're going to get through this. Just look at me. And like, it was a really like comfortable moment. I was watching this little girl and then I watched her coach and the coach grabbed her arm really quickly and looked at her in the eyes and started breathing and said, okay, we're going to count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, and started breathing in and breathing out. And he had her count. And as she was counting, he was saying, you're so brave. You could have cried in that moment, but you were thoughtful and you breathed through it. And I'm so proud of you. And I literally was ready to start crying myself. And I realized, wow, this is why coaches are so important. This is why teachers are so important, because there are those coaches and those teachers that are unstoppable, that are unbelievable. Because I literally just did the breathing exercise that this 6-year-old did because I was feeling the anxiety and I was feeling the stress because something was reminding me of my past. I also was overwhelmed because lady wasn't listening to the teacher and she was like running around and I was so frustrated. And I was like, lady, like you need to be able to fit in. Like you're with these older kids, like, get it together. Like, and then I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, she's a baby, Alessandra, like calm down. It's fine. They've got it. And it was really nice because after I did my breath work with this coach in the background that he has no idea this is happening unless he listens to this podcast, lady's other coach like came up to me and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like I was apologizing for my baby. Like, I'm sorry that she's a child and she's running around. And she goes, it's okay. She's here. She's showing up. She listens. She's a baby. It's okay. We're going to get through it. And I was like, wow, I really needed to hear that. Not because I want lady to be perfect and this awesome A+ child, but because I needed to be reminded like she's a baby, she's having fun, and like it's okay. It's okay not to control. It's okay to let her just be in this situation and let her be the best version of herself. Relinquishing control is the hardest and the biggest test in parenthood for me. I don't know how it is for you, but I'm a fucking control freak. And I will openly admit that. I want to control my relationships. I want to control my friendships. I want to control my career. I want to control this podcast. I want to control my child. And I realize there are lots of things that I can control, 100%, but most of them I can't control. And it's about learning how to relinquish that control. It's a slow process, but it's a process I'm going to get through. In fact, something I can't control is flying, something I have a really big fear of that has gotten tremendously worse through my postpartum anxiety and my postpartum OCD. So, on that note, I'm going to say goodbye and thank you so much for listening to this episode because I actually have to get to my hypnotherapy session where I'm working on relinquishing control. So, more on that on another time. Please share this episode with a friend or someone that you think this could help. And just remember, you are awesome. You are brave. You are strong. You are beautiful. You are fabulous. You are the best version of yourself. And I love you. And thank you for being my emotional support.